Have you ever experienced something that seemed like an end, but was actually just the beginning of a great transformation? Imagine being fired because of a rumor that wasn't even true. Your world turns upside down, and in an instant you feel like you've lost everything. That's what happened to him. A man who, in a moment of total despair, chose not to seek revenge, but to reinvent himself. What he did after that not only surprised everyone around him, but also changed his life forever. If you've ever faced an injustice, you know how difficult it is to deal with pain and the desire for retaliation. But what if instead you could transform that pain into something powerful? Stay with me until the end of this story and discover how faith, courage, and forgiveness can lead us on a path of true overcoming. If you believe in the power of transformation and hope, subscribe to the channel now so you don't miss any more stories that touch the soul. The story begins with Ethan, a man trying to fulfill his responsibilities at work. He never expected his life to turn out the way it did. It was a normal day, a quick breakfast with promises of a productive day. But when he arrived at work, the atmosphere seemed different. People were talking in whispers. Glances were quickly exchanged. Something was in the air, but he didn't know what it was. Until around mid-morning, he received an unexpected call from his boss. "We need to talk," said the voice on the other end of the line with a coldness he had never heard before. And it was there, at that moment, that the bomb went off. An unfounded rumor had spread throughout the office, irreparably damaging his reputation. The news that he had done something wrong at work, something completely false, was enough to put him against the wall. Dismissal seemed like an inevitable consequence, but he didn't know how to react. His mind was in shock, and his boss's words were like a distant echo. A feeling of helplessness took over his body. He looked around the office as his things were, packed without even a convincing explanation. The rumor, which he had known to be false, seemed to have taken on a life of its own, spreading uncontrollably. People avoided his gaze, while others watched him with a mixture of curiosity and judgment. He felt as if he had been abandoned by everyone, without a chance to defend himself. What hurt the most was not only the loss of his job, but the certainty that no one believed him. The lie had taken root so deeply that his words seemed worthless. The pain of betrayal was even greater because it came from an environment he considered his second home. He didn't know whether to fight or simply disappear. But deep down, something inside him began to awaken. The anger was great, but he knew that he could not let that lie define his life. In the days following his dismissal, a silent revolt grew within him. Memories of colleagues who had laughed behind his back, of the fake smiles he had trusted, of the conversations behind his back filled his mind. The desire for revenge was strong, almost irresistible. He imagined 1,000 ways to expose those responsible for the lie, to tarnish the reputations of those who had fueled the rumor. Each thought pushed him towards an impulsive decision, which made him feel stronger, more in control of the situation. But something inside him began to question these thoughts. It was as if an inner voice was preventing him from taking that path. Revenge seemed sweet at first sight, but he knew it could be the beginning of an endless cycle of pain and destruction. And, despite all the anger, something told him that this was not the right path. He needed to find another way to deal with this situation. Amidst the storm of thoughts and emotions, he withdrew for a few days, looking for something to calm his soul. One quiet morning, he decided to take a walk around the city, aimlessly, just to breathe. That was when he met an elderly woman who, unaware of what was happening in his life, told him something that touched his heart. Sometimes life knocks us down in ways we don't understand, but it's in those falls that we find our true strength, she said with a gentle smile. Those words resonated in his mind. Something deep inside him woke up. It was as if she had spoken directly to his soul. He remembered the lessons of faith he had always heard, that adversity is not an end, but an opportunity for rebirth. At that moment, he felt something different. The anger was diminishing, and in its place, a seed of hope was beginning to germinate. He realized that he didn't need to seek revenge to get back on his feet. The faith he had lost in the midst of pain was showing him a way again. He couldn't control what others thought, but he could control his reaction to the situation. He decided that he would not give in to hatred. With a clearer mind, he made a decision that surprised even himself. He would not let himself be defined by rumors. He knew the journey ahead would not be easy, but for the first time since everything happened, he felt a slight sense of control. He decided to start from scratch. And to do that, he would need to change his mindset. He distanced himself from people who fueled negativity and began to surround himself with voices that encouraged him to seek a new direction. The first step was simple but significant. He began to study and hone skills that he had never considered before. Each day, he dedicated himself to learning something new, to developing personally and professionally. He began to see the situation not as a defeat, but as an opportunity to grow and reinvent himself. This new purpose motivated him to move forward, without resentment, but with a genuine desire to create something better for himself. It was as if, by working on himself, he was preparing for something greater. The pain of injustice was still there, but faith and hope were replacing anger, making room for something more powerful: transformation. Months passed, and he continued to walk his path of self-discovery and growth. His efforts were beginning to bear fruit. He was invited to speak about overcoming obstacles at a local event, something he had never imagined possible months before, when everything seemed lost. The invitation came as a surprise, but he accepted, knowing that this was a chance to put into practice what he had learned. The talk was a milestone. He shared his experience of being brought down by a rumor, but also spoke about how he overcame that moment by seeking faith and forgiveness. The audience's reaction was intense. Many people approached him after the event, saying that his words had touched their hearts. He had not only transformed his own pain into something positive, but he had also inspired others to do the same. This made him realize that true strength lay in his vulnerability and not in his revenge. It was there, that night, that he realized that his journey of overcoming was not just about him. It had a greater purpose: to help others also find the path to healing and transformation. Despite the growing success in his new journey, one day he received an unexpected message. It was from his old boss, the one who had been the bearer of the cruel news that had changed his life. The boss apologized, saying that he had discovered that the rumor was false, but that it had already caused irreparable damage. The feeling of justice that he had sought for so long returned with force, but this time he was not tempted to act out of anger. Instead, he took a deep breath and responded calmly, remembering everything he had learned about forgiveness. He no longer needed the validation of others to move forward. He had something more valuable now: inner peace. I understand the situation. I believe that the lessons I have learned are more important than any excuse, he wrote sincerely. That moment was a turning point, not only because his boss acknowledged his mistake, but because he realized that he did not need to carry the weight of others' guilt. He was free, and that apology message was the last piece missing to close the cycle of his transformation. As his life moved on, a new opportunity magically presented itself. An old friend who had heard about his layoff and his journey of transformation approached him with a proposal. The company he worked for was opening a new division, and he believed his former coworker would be the perfect person to lead it. It wasn't just a new job. It was a chance to create something from scratch, to lead based on the values he now held dear: integrity, empathy, and purpose. He hesitated, wondering if he was ready for this new responsibility. But as he looked back at all he had overcome, he realized that life had given him a second chance, not to seek revenge or to return to the way he was, but to become someone better. He accepted the challenge, determined to build something that would not only reflect his professional skills, but also his personal growth. Over time, he became not only a respected leader, but a mentor to others facing similar challenges. With each new opportunity that arose, he felt that he was fulfilling his purpose of helping others overcome adversity with faith, resilience, and courage. The years passed, and the new division he led prospered in unexpected ways. But more than the numbers or material success, the impact he had on the people around him was what truly marked his life. He realized that his story of overcoming and transformation touched the lives of many who were going through similar situations. Those who had been betrayed, wronged, or who simply felt lost and without direction. He became an example of how true strength does not come from anger or a desire for revenge, but from the ability to get back up after each fall, from the courage to move forward even when the path seemed impossible. People from all over came to him, not only seeking professional advice, but also to hear his story, to understand how he managed to transform so much pain into something positive. Looking back at everything he had achieved, he smiled with gratitude. The dismissal, the rumor, the pain he had felt, all of this took him to a deeper place, where true peace and purpose in his life were found. He knew that the journey was not about the destination, but about what one learns and becomes along the way. And he had indeed become someone who, amidst the chaos, knew how to find the light. Sometimes life challenges us in ways we don't understand, but each challenge carries with it an opportunity for transformation. What seemed like the end for him was only the beginning of a journey of faith, forgiveness, and growth. He learned that true strength does not come from revenge, but from the courage to move forward, to start over, and to use difficulties as fuel for a greater purpose. Have you ever experienced something like this? What would you do in his place? Would you be able to forgive and transform pain into strength? If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who also needs to hear this message of overcoming. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to follow more stories of transformation and inspiration. Believe me, your journey can also be one of overcoming, and the best is yet to come.